before in their lives, and even certain periods of history, leaving the country or being in a different place because like fascism steps in to stop like that freedom of movement. But the reality is that like we buy into it and we convince ourselves that we can't do it, and that other people that are doing it because they are
Mhm.
like they're in the receipt of some privilege that you don't have.
It reminds me of a voice client I used to have. Um, and she was a very smart woman. She had her fair share of like, mental health issues, sure. But she drove a like a semi, like an 18-wheeler, right? She made deliveries and stuff. And but she was also a client where like when we did voice work, I'd let her sort of do her own thing, and she can recite the entire periodic table of elements from memory with 100% accuracy with atomic weights. And I'm like, why don't you work in like a science field? And she's like, well, I'm not smart enough for that. And I'm like, but you are.
Clearly,
And
literally.
I've said that a few times, and I said to her one time, I said that whole thing about how we make these emotional decisions and then these logical rationalizations for the emotional decision. And I'm just like, this is all a story. You tell yourself you can do anything you want. That's the secret. Nobody else wants you to know is that you can just do whatever you want. As long as you're not hurting anybody, you can do anything you want.
Quite literally, yeah. And the only difference between those that do and those that don't is belief. I'm saying
Now
this
you
right
say
now.
that I was just going to say, you say that to somebody though, and there's always going to be that person that's like, oh, you mean I can rob a bank? And you have to watch that person.
Yeah, that's what I was
Or
about to
there's that
say. Yeah,
person that says, you mean I can go out and just kill people?
yeah,
And
because
you
you,
really have to watch that person.
yeah, it should go without saying that like you can do what you want as long as it doesn't hurt another human being. Like, if the thing that you want to do is like the subject of that predicate resides on like damaging another individual or taking something away from them that they have,
Hmm.
maybe not even because you want it, but just because you don't want them to have it, like that is the problem.
Hmm. I honestly think like therapy, maybe not necessarily therapy, but like at the very least, like psychology and like emotional understanding and things like that should be taught at like an elementary school level, right? And I think if we did that, we'd end up with a lot less like fucked up adults, right? And we'd end up with like people that are more emotionally intelligent. And at the same time, we'd identify the children of abusive households much faster.
Yeah, more people would just have the ability to like logically understand who's in need of help rather than that being the duty of a trained professional. Like,
Yeah, if we just raise our own baseline, you
yeah,
know,
how to care for yourself and
understanding.
others. Yeah, rather than being like,
Yeah.
this is how you can care for yourself enough to keep yourself alive. These are the things you absolutely should not do because it's like the worst thing you can possibly do, and everything else is governed by like an independent body that somehow just knows more than you do about compassion or what it means to be a human being. I
And it kind
studied.
of goes back like to what you were saying, right? Like compartmentalizing. And like to some extent, I agree with that. In the moment, you might not be able to just full on feel that emotion and you have to compartmentalize and like carry on with your day and you deal with that later, right? Like
Mhm.
compartmentalization is a good temporary measure. But as someone who has like transitioned their gender over time, the most implicit thing that I've really learned is that a lot of men, because of the way men are raised, right, to be manly, to not show emotion, to not show weakness, right, a lot of men will feel an emotion, they'll give it a label, and then they'll file it away and never think about it again, right? Whereas the more healthy option is to feel the emotion and just sit with it a minute and ask yourself, what is this bringing up for me?
Hmm.
And what is this rooted in? Is this rooted in something that I felt in the past? Because this might be a deeper issue that I could look at objectively right now in real time and have a good session, an
Just start
introspection
peeling
session
back the
about it.
layers. Yeah. Oh, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
say. Like, compartmentalization is a tool that you can learn to get better at, but it is like in the immediate sense. The reality is nobody truly expects you to give the best response possible when you're at your weakest, because that's literally when it's the hardest for you to do the thing
Yes.
you know is right. But the place where we fail isn't blowing up in the moment, it's understanding that we had a blow up moment and then we leave that in the past rather than readdressing our emotions, which I'll be the first to admit that the readdress is something that I've only actively been doing in recent years, but it's exactly what you just said. Like, if a moment happened when you are in that space where you feel comfortable again, which is typically when people are like, it's a problem I've seen in relationships as well, because it's like, if you're not going to talk about it then, now when are we going to talk about it? Because if it's like, if
Exactly.
you're going to wait until you're in a really good place, you're probably not going to want to talk about it then either. You have to
Yeah.
put time aside to go back to the thing that made you uncomfortable when you're in a more rational frame of mind, and just readdress your emotions. Like, now you have a better opportunity to calmly reflect upon that thing and understand why it happened and where it came from. Actively doing that is the difference between somebody who is going to learn from those experiences as opposed to somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's just going to continue to like repeat those experiences.
Perpetuate. Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a
100%.
manual labor, it's effort. I, as an autistic individual, have lived my entire life force forming practical habits. There are, and this is an excuse, there are certain things in life that I will not learn the same way other people learn them. And that's normal for like every person, but the difference is the largest number of like average people have a better understanding of social cues and like emotional cues than I do as a human being. My brain will not pick up on those things that people pick up on implicitly. I will experience it first, and then it will have to be explained to me, and then in my mind I'm like, okay, well, that goes with this, and there's now a connection between those things, and I have to manually say to myself in the future, like, this feels a lot like it did that previous time. Is this another example of me making that mistake that I made? You know what I mean? And having to think about like the context from an objective point of view. I'm not going to pick
Mm-hmm.
up on like that. It's literally why everybody that meets me is just like, oh, you're kind of weird, aren't you? It doesn't matter how I behave, what I
Mm-hmm.
do, what I think, or how hard I try to not be weird. Like, I'm always going to be that weird person, and it's because they're picking up on the fact that I'm not behaving like the average person. The average person intuitively understands social norms and social etiquette and like conversational etiquette. I do not. You're going to think I'm an asshole. You're going to think I'm super blunt, and I accept that, and I genuinely try to do my best to address it. But it just comes down to the fact that like I am manually doing everything in front of you at any given second. There's like processes going on, a billion things happening at the same time, and it's all very
Yeah.
like noticeable in my brain.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah. And
quiet
that's the
engine.
thing, right? That's the thing. Is being a living, breathing human is like life is a series of habits, right? Everything we do is a habit. If you perpetually kick people out of your life, that's a habit. If you're just like a person, you wake up depressed and you're gonna feel depressed all day now because I experienced something negative, that's a habit. Like I do vocal training for a living. That's rebuilding habits. Like everything we do is a habit, and changing habits requires time, effort, and repetition. Everything we do is a habit, and that's why it's
Exactly.
work to change those habits because it's time, it's effort, and it's repetition. Doing it
So
over
true.
and over and over again until the neural pathways form, and it's like
It's
second
amazing.
nature.
Yeah, it's amazing how that change happens. Like, you can make anything second nature. Like, when I was younger and I first got into the workforce, I hated it. I hated every aspect of it. I hated having to work to get money to pay bills, having to wake up that early in the morning, having to travel to a job that I don't like, to be around people that I don't like, to serve people that I don't like. And I fucking hated it so much that I couldn't even fathom being part of the system. And as long as all of that's happening, I won't be, and I will feel like shit, and it is going to be the most awful thing in the world. And so I have, because like I was saying, force forming practical habits. The biggest example in my life of force forming practical habits is getting up in the morning, going to work, and doing my fucking job. I'm about to be 32, and it's, again, only in recent years that I've finally managed to cultivate a mindset that enjoys what I do, that does it because I
Mhm.
want to be there for me and I enjoy it. And everything else now is a byproduct of that. I don't stress about not having money sucks. If you don't have money and you've got bills to pay, that is a stressful situation. But what happens
Mhm.
is people then conflate that with like what I was just saying, like, oh, now I have to go and do this thing I don't like to get the shit that I don't care about, to pay for the shit that I don't need. For me now, it's like, yeah, not having money sucks, and I feel that. Not being able to pay a bill is a problem that needs to be addressed, but I'm not going to spend all my time suffering it because I either do or I don't, and if I don't, I don't. And when I do, it's literally a byproduct of me doing whatever it is I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like in the last week,
Mhm.
I've had like 4 different job offers, and I'm actually actively right this second in a period of my life yet again where I'm like in between my normal jobs, and like a month or two from now, this is like, chances are I'm probably going to go back to garden. Like, I've already got it set up. I've been talking to, funnily enough, my most recent employer. I was looking for some, like, it's because it's getting to that time of the year. I'm a gardener by trade, right? And sort of March,
Mhm.
April time, things are going to warm up again, and that work is there ready for me. Like, I don't need to try to get into that work. That's what I do. But I
Mhm.
want to make a change. So recently, I've been working, doing what I'm doing, and right now that's affording me a lot of extra time, and I'm using that extra time to do things like play an instrument, or like search for a new career. And I've actively been going out, setting up meetings, and like applying for like just opportunities. Like, I got in touch with somebody and said, like, is there any chance that you could pay for this thing that I didn't even know existed, but if I have it, it will make me better at my trade. And they were like, yeah, actually we can do that, but right now it's not a thing, but when it is a thing, if you want, we could do that for you. So now they've put me on that list, and it's like, I honestly, irrelevant. I could be better off paying for it for myself. But anyway, I'm in a point where I'm doing all of these things, and I'm actively like considering a transition into a new career, and what I want to do. But during all of that, I accidentally put in an application for a company, and at the time I thought it was a company that I wasn't familiar with. And then when I got just before I actually realized I had a response from that company, after I'd made the application, I was like doing some other shit, and then I saw it in my notes, and I was like, why does that name sound so familiar? And then I realized that company is the sister company of the company that I worked for. It's owned by my most previous like employer, which I didn't
Mhm.
necessarily leave on the best terms with. Like, I didn't have an issue with my employer specifically. I had an issue with somebody employed by them, and I left the company. And when I did so, they were like, don't leave. I got offered a promotion. They were like, we'll give you your own, like, the shit you're doing, that'll be your shit now. You won't be doing that for someone else. That'll be your shit. You'll be in charge of that, you know? And I was like, no, my mental health is way too important to me right now to
Mhm.
willingly put myself into that situation. So anyway, I accidentally messaged my former employer, and they offered me my job back. And I was like, this throws a bit of a spanner in the works, because it's like, this happened because I'm actively looking for somewhere else to be employed, but now I've been offered that opportunity again. So I literally responded saying, like, I'm in a position where what I'm looking for is this. And I said, this is what I want, like ABC. And I concluded it by saying, if upon reading that, you still feel like I'm what you're looking for, then I would be more than happy to come in and have a conversation with you about it. You know what I mean? And they literally hit me
Mhm.
back so quick, just give us your number.
I love that.
I was like, all right, but that's how it is now. It's like we were saying to your partner, who I name vicariously, but once you like, you have to, because I've had to do this recently. I've had to accept that I've hit that point now where I'm not only feeling the benefit of having force formed all of those practical habits and making my job something that I enjoy and therefore I'm good at, but also understanding that as a